muted, Pompey, so I can hear your answer. Okay, it looks like we just started recording, right? Am I correct? Okay, so we weren't recording before? Okay, so Andrea, my apologies. Just to make sure we capture that answer, I'm gonna ask you the question again, just so it's recorded and it's there on the record. So, feasibility study, youth spaces, Sisters Unchained, and then our first question is, what do you think of when you think of youth spaces? What have your experiences been? What do you appreciate? What are some gaps? And Andrea, appreciate you generously just repeating what you've just told us.
I was saying that I believe youth spaces is like community centers, like the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, things like that, like things that youth can go to, like to rely on, like things just to do. So we're not out like doing things that we shouldn't be doing. But I feel like I've always grown up like going to the Boys and Girls Club, going to the YMCA, like I've always grown up doing that. But it's never like, it never did anything for me mentally. Like I feel like they never focused on our mental state. It was always like, okay, you're here, this is after school, it's time to do homework. Like it never helped me. Like it wasn't something that I really looked forward to, because it was like, okay, now I gotta sit down and do homework. Like after I just did school, like I don't have no one to talk to really, no one focusing on me. So I feel like, yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Andrea. How about you, Ayana?
Hi, so what comes to mind for me, I'm thinking of a lot of like social justice spaces that try to tap in young people. And I agree with Andrea in terms of like, you know, also understanding that we need a space dedicated to healing as well. I think what also comes to mind in terms of youth spaces are community centers as well. And, you know, like arts and music. And then I don't know if this question is talking about Sisters Unchained in general, or if it's directed towards traditional spaces, but when I'm thinking of Sisters Unchained, I'm just thinking of a space where, you know, there's more like self-determination to create our own space, and like what that looks like when we walk in, like how are we creating a home for ourselves. And I feel like that's really important in terms of like having a place where you could be authentic and real and just like trust each other and then go from there.
Cool, thank you, Ayana. All right, I'm looking at the names and trying to do the alphabet in my head. I think Janasia. It's
Janasia?
you, yeah? Okay, all right,
Yeah.
excellent.
Personally, I think youth spaces, like Andrea said, are like community centers and things like that, or they could also be like youth jobs that kids have for like when they have out of school. But one thing that I do think that youth centers do lack, I agree with Andrea when she says the mental health aspect. And I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like it's the mental health aspect, but then like there's a lot of programs where kids can just go, but then like there's a lot of kids who like struggle and like have to work for themselves and have to get money for themselves. And I feel like there's not like a lot of youth jobs out there for kids other than like things like fast food or like other like little companies, but like stuff like kids like that can actually be interested in, like the social justice job that me and Andrea work, or like different jobs that like get them into like different ideas of what they want to do in the future. But I feel like that's what it's lacking mostly.
Cool, thank you, Janasia. So, and I'm gonna continue from what you've just said, and I'm gonna go backwards now in the alphabet. And so I'll continue with what you just said. So you mentioned youth jobs, and this was something that came up last week when we talked with youth from Green Roots, who they mostly talked about spaces in Chelsea. And then the week before, we talked with some people from Girls Leap and the Charlestown High Diploma Plus program. And what came up related to youth jobs was the notion that, yes, there are community centers, so that came up repeatedly, and Boys and Girls Club, And there was the sense that there were lots of spaces for youth who are on the younger end of the spectrum. And then when you hit adulthood, so when you've got 21 plus, then there are lots of spaces for people 21 plus, but there didn't seem to be too many teen spaces. And so when we asked the group, you know, how would you envision some teen spaces? Definitely youth jobs played into that. And so my question for you, Janasia, would be, do you agree? What is your sense of what, and I'm gonna go backwards and ask Ayana and Andrea this too, but what is your sense of the types of teen spaces that are available? And if you could create any type of teen space that you wanted to create, what would that look like?
So I feel like there are things out there for kids, but it's just not as much as there should be, if you know what I'm saying, because like there's a lot of like youth programs, but there's not a lot of youth jobs. Like, because usually like when like teenagers around the ages of like 16 try to go and find a job, it's hard because like you don't have any experience, and then nobody wants to hire you if you don't have experience. So it's hard. And I feel like a way that this could be changed, like, I don't know, there could be like because there's all these youth programs, but like there's like not many programs for where people can go and find jobs and find internships and things that they like, because a job is not like always something that is guaranteed to find. But then there's also internships. Like there's a lot of kids that don't know like about internships at like the John Hancock building that they can do over the summer, and they give kids like that work with them like school supplies and stuff for after they're finished with their internship over the summer. And that can benefit to a lot of kids who don't have like the means to get school supplies for when school's back up in the summer. And then it's also like you're working, you're getting a check, you're also getting office experience. So I feel like if there was just like programs, I feel like there doesn't need to be more programs. I feel like there needs to be, the programs need to like put out more stuff and put out more information for the youth, personally.
Thank you, Janasia. Ayana,
No
what
problem.
do you think?
Actually, I was gonna say, so I'm technically 25, so I'm wondering if I should step back because it's 18 to 24, right? So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you could also maybe reflect, and maybe you think it's still relevant, or maybe it's not. So maybe like your reflection could be outdated today, but maybe not.
Okay. Sure. So the question is like, what are the gaps basically?
Yeah.
Okay. I think what comes to mind right away, and I won't take up too much space, but just like young people when they're in crisis mode. And so like with Sisters Unchained, we try in terms of like in our inner circle to like be there when like things are going wrong, but we don't have like a full structure. And I just think in general in Boston, like, yeah, like we don't have any real infrastructure for when young people in crisis, whether that's like with their parents or like getting the police involved, and like how can we again like push for transformative justice where we're supporting young people like right when they like really need it, but in a way that doesn't create any more further harm.
Thank you, Ayana. And Andrea, what are your thoughts on this question?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so just on the piece of youth jobs, that seemed to be
Yeah.
something that was common in this conversation and the two previous conversations that we had with other people. And that was related to the sense that there were spaces for younger people that are very young, and then there are spaces for adults, and there aren't so many for teens. And so first question is, well, do you agree with that? Do you agree that there aren't really so many spaces for teens? And if you could create any type of teen space that you wanted, what would that look like?
So I do agree with that. I feel like as we get older, like teens kind of get forgotten about. Like we kind of like, I don't know, like I feel like there's just not that many spaces for us. And if I could create like spaces, it would, well, I don't know, it would have a lot. Like for starters, it would have jobs that are paying good, like good paying jobs, like jobs that aren't having these starvation wages for us, because I know we're teens, so like we're not expected to make that much money. Like we're expected to settle for like these starvation wages, and that's not fair. And then it would also have things that are like resources for kids who are going to college, like because the whole college process is hard and it's stressful, and I feel like there should be like those resources to teach kids how to like apply for scholarships, how to apply for FAFSA, because our schools are expected to teach us this, but sometimes we don't have that because we don't have the right fundings to get the right counselors to help us apply for FAFSA and apply to colleges and stuff like that. So it would have that and jobs, and then it would have like sports, like basketball, football, things like that, and counselors too. Like it would have a lot of counselors because, and mentors. We need mentors. Teenagers need mentors. We need to know what to do and which directions to go. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea. I have two more. I'm going to ask you all two more questions, and I just want to make sure I'm not asking Vanessa any questions, and I just want to make sure that that's okay. And I did have one question that I thought I would ask Vanessa, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't making an assumption about Vanessa's participation in the conversation.
That's okay. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm way older than 25.
All right,
I'm just
cool.
here to support
Thank
my
you.
girls. No, I hear you.
Okay, but I do have one question for you, but I have a couple of questions, couple more questions for Janasia, Andrea, and Ayana. So this one I'm actually borrowing from one of our members who is on the call with us, Abigail. And so Abigail asked us this a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought it was a great question, and so I've used it since. And I see Angel has a question as well. So after I ask these three questions, then we'll get questions from our members as well. But Abigail asked, if you could, what is something creative or non-creative that you haven't, that you wanted to try, that you haven't had an opportunity to try? And I'll start with you, Andrea. So what is something creative or non-creative that you've always wanted to try that you've not yet had an opportunity to try?
I've always wanted to try like painting, like just I don't know, like painting, like, but not just like I've always wanted to try like painting like murals and like big things, like just like community art, but I never really had the chance because there's not that many opportunities to do that out here. But I've always wanted to try that.
Cool, thank you, Andrea. Someone else said that a couple of weeks ago as well. How about you, Ayana?
What immediately came to my mind, because I feel like I have no hobbies, but if I knew how to roller skate, that would be amazing. And also it would be a cool way to work out with other people and vibe and dance and all that stuff. But I don't know how to roller skate, so that dream is dead for now. And then also a non-creative way, which I already mentioned, was like the transformative justice work. I feel like that's so needed right now. So that's something that I really do want to try.
Cool, thank you, Ayana. And Janasia, what about you?
I don't know. I went to college and did a lot. I like really broke out my shell like when I left and went to college. So I don't know, cause like I did like, cause like before I went to college, I was like not really like a social person. Like I didn't like to go out and like do stuff with people. Like I really like it wasn't my thing. But I did it more going to school, like going out and like, cause I don't like talking to people I don't know. So like probably like just basic like social skills, like just basically meeting new people and like doing different things, like trying different food places and like just having stuff that I didn't get to experience when I was in high school, because I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. So just getting that wholehearted friends experience. And side note, Ayana, Chez Vu's is $10 skating on Tuesdays, so you better go learn because don't nobody decide. But that's
Thank you. Will you come with me?
Yes.
Thank you. That's a good point. Yeah, thank you. And then my last question for the three of y'all, and then I have one for Vanessa, and then we'll kick it to our members. Again, at the top of the meeting, we talked about the feasibility studies and that it's to study community needs. And the way we learn about community needs is at our assemblies. And so this is how we gather information from our members and community members as we have neighborhood gatherings that are called assemblies. And at those neighborhood assemblies, we ask the people who were there, what are businesses that you love? What are businesses that you think we need? And we just talked about that, youth space. And then what are businesses you want to replace? So I'm curious, if you were at one of our neighborhood assemblies, what would you name as businesses you love? What are businesses that you love in your neighborhood? And I'll start with Ayana.
Businesses that I love are obviously the Black-owned food places. What was this? It was a 3-part question, right? Businesses you love.
I gave the context, but really it's just about the businesses we love. So
oh,
what would be
okay, cool.
Yeah, and if you have any like specific names, that would be great too.
Okay, cool. It's cool too to see like the healthy Black-owned businesses like Juicy Green, and then there's like a Black-owned Jamaican one, Merle's Kitchen, that's really good. That's like more family, local. Yeah, those are like the top 2 right now that I'm thinking about. And then I would like to see more like, I don't know, places for like learning per se, but like that you could just like chill, like kind of like a library bookstore vibe, but like it's like a community hub. I don't think we have much of that. Like you go to other cities and like there's more culture, like, you know, and I think tying that into these business models, like having places where it could just be a hub for culture would be really dope. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Ayana. And actually bookstore is what is on the list. So we'll be studying bookstores in a couple of months. So I'll just go ahead and what about that 3rd category? Keeping in mind we're recording and this is gonna go on our YouTube. So you make decisions about what you want to be public with. What is a business you would want to replace?
Oh God. I wouldn't say replace, but I just feel like in our communities, there are a lot of liquor stores, and I'm not saying that we need to replace it, but just saying like, I don't know, like there's not a balance. Like you walk down the block and there's like 3, 4, 5 liquor stores compared to other resources that people need. So just keeping that in mind, but yeah.
Cool, thank you, Ayana. Janasia, same. So what are businesses you love? What are businesses you think we need? And what are businesses you would want to replace?
I can't think of the name of like this one specific place, but it's in Dudley. It's like it's a Black-owned shop. I know that because they sell like herbs and crystals and like lotions and stuff.
Essential herbs, probably.
I think
Does
so.
that sound familiar?
I think so.
Yep.
I know it's on the
Cool.
side where like, okay, you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's what it is. I think it is essential herbs, but like I really like that store because like I feel like we don't have enough of those. Like I don't see enough of those stores, like healing stores with like not like doctoral medicine, like stuff like crystals and like herbs and like different lotions and like scents and oils and stuff like that. Cause I'm like really into that stuff. And like, I feel like there's not a lot of places, like that's the only places I know, the place I know of in Boston where they like really do all that centered stuff. And it's like a lot of like African products that you don't really see in stores. And you said stores that need to be replaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Ayana with like the liquor stores and like a lot of low income communities, like it's like seen that they place like a lot of convenience stores and a lot of like liquor stores and like fast food restaurants, and I feel like it's just like a ploy to like just like keep us down as like a community, because what you put in your body and like what you're eating, and it affects how you think and how you feel and how you go about your everyday life. So I feel like if we had better options around us and like better foods and like, you know, more farmers markets, then maybe, just maybe, you know, our communities would be like a little bit better.
Nice. And you kind of said a little something with the farmers market, but then what about like, what do you think we need?
Need as in like, I don't know, I just feel like we need more education on health too.
Mm-hmm.
More education on health. because it's like a lot of people don't know how to like take care of their bodies, because not every diet plan is going to fit for every person either. Like knowing your body and knowing what your body needs and what you need to put into your body can also be a big help for that too.
Cool. Thank you so much, Janasia. And now, Andrea, what are businesses you love? What are businesses you think we need in our communities? And what would you like to replace?
So businesses that I love fashion businesses. Like I just love those. I love cafes, like the little nice little cafes that you could just sit at, read books, like talk to your friends and stuff. I feel like we need, so like my college, we have this thing and it's where like it's in our like housing, and like we call it the green room, and like that's where everybody hangs out. Like we all just hang out. We always do homework, always play games down there. Like I feel like we need that. Like it's like kind of like, but have it like in a cafe, like a place where like we can hang out, like not a place where it'll be considered like loitering or like, you know, just sitting around when you're not supposed to, like just like a cafe that everyone can hang out at. And I feel like we can do without like the smoke shops and all the fast food places. Like there's a McDonald's at every corner. We do not need that. Like it's bad, like to put into your body. And yeah.
Thank you, Andrea. Then last question for me, and this is for Vanessa. Again, the contest of this is feasibility study. So we have learned a lot the past few weeks, just about how we could be thinking about youth spaces and, you know, what types of spaces we could be supporting. Do you think you can talk a little bit? And I do want to be mindful that I know Angel had a question, so I want to make sure that gets in, and anyone else who has questions. Do you think you can just give us a little bit of an overview of what it takes for you and other people that you work with to create a youth space?
Sure. So I create this with Ayana actually. So she's the co-founder. She's not one of the girls, even though she's so young. Just to let you know, I'm sure you knew, but so I think it's a lot of work. I mean, we're going into our 6th summer, and there's just, you know, we don't have any staff, so it's just Ayana and myself trying to create this and make it grow, and a lot of it is the majority of it, I hate to say, is funding, honestly. Aside from the ideas and the curriculums that we come up with together, our biggest hurdle, it seems like most of the years, are funding, are applying for grants and having the time to be able to apply for the grants, and it's such a lengthy process, and fundraising is not either of our fortes, honestly. So it's been really hard to be able to do that as well, because we do believe in having this youth space as a paid summer program, because we know that that's needed, especially for the girls in our demographics. So that's been something that's been extremely hard for us. And also, we're fortunate enough to be able to use the Old Oak Dojo where we meet in the summer. But, you know, and ideally we would like to have a space of our own, to be able to have the girls, the young women, excuse me now, to be able to have access to these things that they're listing that they would like. You know, we don't have a permanent home, but again, that requires money. You know, rent is so expensive at this moment. So I'm hearing someone's TV. I can't hear you.
Laura, can you mute yourself? We hear some background noise. Okay.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, you know, that's honestly what it takes, I think. What else?
I got something too. Also,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in terms
and my
of
apologies, Ayana. I didn't realize you were the co-founder. My
No,
apologies.
I feel like also, and I think what makes our space unique is just like
Mm-hmm.
people who are directly affected, who are in leadership of it, and I feel like that's really important. And also, like I said earlier, that self-determination piece is so important. Like, yes, we draft the curriculum beforehand, but like we're really like about like, okay, this is our space as a collective. So like, you know, what direction do you guys want to go in? If like, you know, this isn't it, or you want to learn about this and things like that. And I also wanted to add, this may sound like cliche or whatever, but I'm going to say hi. So for the last question, when you asked about businesses to replace, well, prisons in general are bad business for us. So I just wanted to put that on there. Like, you know, they are making money off of us. So that's just something.
And also, you know, to tap into what Ayana's saying, we've like Janasia was mentioned earlier, she's one of the original members. So every year as they've gotten older and they've grown, we've tailored that, like what we believe that they need. You know, after we've inquired with them, what do you want? Like Ayana was saying, what do you want to learn? What would you want us to bring next year? So we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, and then also to speak more about the self-determination too, like especially I feel like with social justice, like youth organizations, it's kind of like, I don't know, I guess just speaking from our place, like we never say like, you know, you're joining this group and you have to be an activist or like you have to be like a organizer. It's more so like understanding like, you know, your voice in the larger movement, and then whatever dreams you want to pursue or fulfill, just understanding those values, and you know, just like whatever you learn and like building that self and political awareness and bringing that into whatever space you're in. I feel like that's the most important, in addition with like healing and all of that.
I also wanted to say one more thing in regards, because I hear healing. I'm sorry, my dog's barking outside. In regards to healing, we've realized this past couple of years that it's really, really important for our girls to have that component, and we've tried to incorporate that into our curriculum, into our summer, into our year, really as much as possible. And healing in specifically to circumstances and traumas that they're facing or have faced.
Cool.
Because we want it to be a safe space where it's not, you know, it's not policed or anything of that sort, where they can come and trust us and talk about whatever's going on, and it's a closed circle, a closed space for us to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vanessa, Ayana. And then just the last question for me, I promise, and then Angel, you're up. So you talked about funding, so definitely very important. If you're comfortable, what would you estimate your budget is? So either what's your budget now, or what's your ideal budget?
Our ideal budget, honestly, and this is if we had our space of our own, including rent, and we were able to pay ourselves, it would be $146,000 a year.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you, Ayana. Thank you, Janasia. Thank you, Andrea. And now I'll kick it to Angel, who had a question, and I'll open it up for questions from our members. And we have about 10 minutes for questions.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My question, just to lead into it. So, I mean, I grew up in Providence, and it wasn't until the age of 17, you know, the college age, that I was exposed to another man, you know, who acknowledged my walk of life and sort of was encouraging me to pursue, you know, a college degree in what I wanted, and acknowledging me as, you know, a person of color in the world that we live in, right? Plagued by, you know, institutional racism and things like that. So, you know, what kind of things, you know, related to, you know, the gaps, like, you know, mental health, you know, what kind of education do you think would be useful in youth spaces?
I know,
you know,
but like,
would help your cause? Is sort of my question, where they don't have to be exposed to it you know, in their late teens or in their 20s, that they can be exposed to this information and it can help them, you know, at an early age, either early teens or preteens.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting in to say that somebody's conversation is going against the line here.
Yeah, just text Joyce, if you can hear us, can you mute yourself? Joyce? I'm gonna see if I can mute her. I'm gonna mute her.
Hold on.
Joyce, can you mute yourself?
I'm sorry, you guys. Hi, I'm so sorry. I came in by accident. I apologize.
No grudge.
Okay, are you
Just
staying
wanted
on,
to correct
Joyce?
it.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to hang up now, actually. That's what
Okay,
I'm trying
all
to
right,
do.
bye.
All right. I'm going silent.
All
Bye,
right.
Joyce. Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Angel.
No, that was Mike. Do you need me to repeat sort of the question, or it's sort of like what, in terms of everything mentioned today, like mental health or job placement or help applying for colleges, like, what types of, education or resources, do you all see that would help that, like self-empowerment stuff, like having, a speaker, any ideas that you might have, like, or people that would help that, that would fill that gap of not being exposed to anyone encouraging you of being yourself till you're like well out of high school or in the graduation phase of high school.
Can I answer? Wait. Oh, okay. I was gonna say I feel like it kind of plays a part in like who you have as a teacher. A lot of people don't really think about this, but teachers do have a big impact on people. And like growing up, I never was taught like to think beyond minimum wage. I never was taught like to think college. I was just taught like, okay, if you graduate high school, you did it. Like you're good. That's all you gotta do. When I was applying to colleges in school, I noticed that a lot of teachers were like trying to push me away from applying to universities and trying to make me apply to community colleges. And there's nothing wrong with community colleges, but I just felt like I wanted to go like far. I wanted to leave home and I wanted to like pursue a 4-year degree. So every time I would say that to them, they'd like kind of like mock me and like look at me like, oh, you think you can get into that school? Like I remember a teacher told me that I would probably get into a community college before I got into a 4-year. So it's just like, I feel like it plays a part in who we have as mentors, because we don't really like some teens, like for me, for an example, I didn't really have that much of like a support system at home. Like my dad was incarcerated for like majority of my life and my mom was like out. So like I didn't have parents to like look up to. Everything was teachers for me. So I feel like when it comes to that, like teachers play a big part in that because they are mentors. Like sometimes they're the only form of adult contact that we have. So yeah.
I'll go. I agree with the teacher's part also, because for like, I know Andrea's situation. So for like kids who like didn't have parents growing up in their lives, like those other like authority figures should be the ones pushing the kids towards like going to college and like doing something bigger and better with their life. And personally, I also think it starts at home too, for the kids who do have parents, like people who like come home and like there are parents that sometimes like don't really care about what their kids are doing. Like I feel like parents should also be encouraging their kids to, go to college. And also in schools, they need to just stop throwing the idea of college out too, because trade school is also something that a lot of kids could get into. And we need more trade workers, and trade has a lot of good money in it. And I feel like a lot of kids don't apply themselves to it or like look into it because it's not talked about in school. Like it's kind of frowned upon. Like people hear like about trade high schools and they be like, oh, like that's not a good school, like automatically. Like I don't know where all the negative stereotypes come from with trade, but like I feel like if there was more positive light shed on trade and like more people, and especially with people of color being in trade, because I feel like that's a reason why they don't speak too much on it either, because there's so much money in it. And like a lot of people getting into trade now are majority like white people. So they're making this money and like they don't want us to like, figure out these different things. So I feel like if, like I said, in our communities, if they like, at the youth centers, if they like promote this and be like, oh, like there's these trade programs that you could get into that can, hopefully get you a stable job and get you into the union and you have a definite job and like a steady income. So I feel like there's like a lot of different factors that play into the buildings of the futures of young kids of color, etc.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Any other comments? Just
Well,
from the
I
chat,
have
just
a
letting y'all know. Okay, I was just gonna say really quickly, I think that's Sky. Just in the chat, someone said +1 on trade, and that's great input. And also trade as a complement to four-year education. And again, another great point about the trade skills. Laura, can you mute yourself?
Yes.
Thank you. And then I think that was you, Sky, who had a question.
Yes, I had more than one actually, but for one, I wanted to ask about how do folks see it being possible to introduce the idea of young people being the problem solvers of for themselves and as individuals and as a community?
Well, personally, first,
do you feel like there should be a classroom setting type of approach to that? Do you feel like there should be a community-wide, diffuse approach to that? How do you think it would best be organized?
Well, first, I feel like there needs to be a space where teens are allowed to put their ideas out, because I personally feel like there's no spaces for teens to put their ideas out or like really tell people like what they think that they can do or what they think that they can move with. And that's why I feel like so many teens gravitate towards social media, because that's where you have all the support of people your age, because that's where people actually listen to you. Whereas you're going out into the community as a teenager trying to speak, and people are not taking you seriously because of your age. And also, again, with the teen centers that Andrea was talking about, like there's not a lot of centers for teens. So I feel like if we like had like an actual center where the teens could actually gather up and probably have like community meetings, that something that could possibly happen. But until like the work is actually put in for us to actually be able to voice our opinions and say what we think that we want to do is change, because a lot of people don't listen to teenagers. People start hearing teenagers speak and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you're too young. So I feel like instead of brushing them off all the time, just taking them in and hearing what they actually have to say could be the start to something like that.
Do you see, so social media is the platform you see that to being the most effective. Is there other ways you could see making that happen, creating spaces like that?
This will be the last question and answer before we go into breakout. Thank you. Go ahead, Janasia.
Yeah, like I said, like just taking steps and precautions to get a space for teens. Like there's already places out here like BCYF and different things like that that could actually open up a space, and like they can actually hold a time in their own area because it is for the youth. So if they actually tried to work towards like a teens night where teens get together and talk about future business ideas, like that would be something that would actually be able to make stuff start moving forward, because there's a lot of kids out here with like good ideas, starting businesses on social media, but they're not really taken serious or known about because of their age. So I feel like if like the youth programs that are out and here today actually cater more to teens, then that would be something that can actually happen.
That makes sense in terms of funding. But
all right, cool, thank you. And I couldn't tell, was someone trying to break in with a thought or a question? We have to wrap up.
Yes.
We are at 7:17 and we have people coming in for the team meetings. So
okay, I just had one question.
Yeah, I sent a message. I sent a written thing.
Okay, yeah, I think you put in about the policy tradeswomen's group. They work to get women in the trades, particularly Black women. It's a great group. Thank you, Louise. And then I think Sierra, you had something, and then this really has to be the last one.
Yeah, sorry guys. So I guess I had a question. When I was a young person, I saw a lot of, and like also feel free to like give me like a one-word answer or, you know, however you feel like responding to it. But I saw a lot of the people that got into these programs, like jobs and internships at high school, were people that were liked by their guidance counselors because there were so few at the school that I graduated from. So I'm just wondering how you guys think about supporting youth who aren't being pipelined into jobs and internships.
Do you want to go, Andrea?
You can go first.
Personally, I think like, because that's going to be inevitable. I don't think that's something that's really going to be changed. Like, because I feel like it's always going to happen. Like, and like we can try our hardest to fix it, but honestly, the things that we can preach to these kids is just self-educate, in my best personal opinion, and like trying to find like other like resources where they can get references from other than just school. But that's the best I can offer.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like favoritism is like always going to be a thing, especially with like guidance counselors in high schools and stuff like that. Like, I feel like popularity gets you far. Like, if you're popular, that's what's going to get you like into these doors and stuff like that. But I just feel like there just needs to be more resources, like more flyers, more jobs, just everything that's more, you know, for kids or for teens.
Thank you,
I,
Matt.
I just want to say something. I just wanted to say something really quickly. I just wanted to also point out that what Ayana and I are trying to create is having the girls, the young women come back when they have aged out in the summer and work as facilitators. So Andrea and Janasia, since they've graduated already and they're in college, our summer program's only to the age of 18. They're returning this summer as facilitators, so we hope to continue doing the work in that form.
Thank you. And I
So,
think Vanessa, for you, that kind of addresses some of kind of like that favoritism, or who seems to get like a lot of resources versus others. Okay, excellent.
exactly.
This was wonderful, Sisters Unchained. Thank you so much. So thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Ayana. Thank you, Janasia. And thank you, Vanessa. So I will now kick it back to Pompey, who
Thank
will
you,
help us
guys.
transition.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
If you can hang on just a second, I just wanted to let you know that Boston Ujima Project has a youth caucus. And although it's not a physical place, especially in these days, there are several groups who are definitely participating. We really are trying to focus on self-determination and making it a youth-led space. So it would be lovely to have some of you help shape that if you're interested, so that we have, you know, we have more youth who are very much interested in self-determination and kind of playing around with that and what that might look like as a community model to be able to work together to create something sustainable, hopefully.
Excellent.
So I'll be in touch with you about that.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
So
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
Poppy will stop the recording and help us transition into our team meetings.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello.
Bye.